In this pursuit of life, we sometimes get so fixated on the goal that we completely ignore the journey. We tend to forget that it's not just about the goal, but feeling good while doing it. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel and to the first episode of Book Club, a new series where I summarize the key insights and ideas from one of my favorite books. And today we're talking about Feel Good Productivity by one of the leading productivity gurus, Ali Abdaal, which is all about how you can make your work more enjoyable and sustainable. With various examples and studies from all over the world, the book explains how some small changes in our lives can make the work more enjoyable and feel better. So there's basically three key insights from this book that we're going to talk about in turn. Firstly, we'll talk about how to use the science of feel good productivity to energize yourself. Secondly, how to overcome procrastination by overcoming the three blockers: uncertainty, fear, and inertia. And finally, how feel good productivity can sustain us in long term to make us feel better, not just for days and weeks, but for months. Firstly, let's talk about energizing. Ali has further divided this part into three subheadings: play, power, and people. The ideology behind play is to making the work feel more of a game than actual work. So, in order to make the work joyous, the first step is to reframe your failures. We generally think of failures as a full stop or end of our journeys, but having an optimistic mindset about failures can substantially affect our performance. Any idea with an experimental mindset that doesn't meet expectation would just be another data point to help you refine your strategy and forming better understandings. So, the next time you come across a failure, remember that no failure is ever just a failure, it's an invitation to try something new. The second thing to do is not to be serious but sincere. Well, consider playing a board game. No one wants to play with someone who is too fixated on winning and being too serious about the rules and stuff and ignoring the main purpose of playing: enjoyment. But neither do we want to play with someone who's completely uncaring, those who don't engage with the game and don't make an active effort to play to the best of their abilities. The most fun people to play games with are those who play sincerely, like they take the game seriously enough to be fully engaged in the experience, but not so seriously that they become fixated on winning or losing. So the trick is simple, like when you feel like your work is overwhelming or draining, try asking yourself, how can I approach this with a little less seriousness and a little more sincerity? Like, for example, if I have to take this YouTube video sincerely rather than seriously, I'll try to focus more on filming and editing and trying to make the process a little more fun rather than thinking of how many views and subscribers I'll get from it. Next up, we have power. Power simply means feeling empowered to take your job, life, and future into your own hands. The first thing to gain instant power in something is to behave as if you're confident in your task, even if you're not. This is simpler than it sounds. The next time you're not feeling good enough to take a chance, simply ask yourself, what would it look like if I were really confident at this? And you'll be surprised at how quite impactful this method can be. And even just for a moment, it can drastically boost your morale and confidence. Next up is having the mindset of if they can, I can too. Again, simply find people who are going through the same challenges as you are or went through those same challenges, like a YouTuber or some artist or any other person who is at the same level or some higher level than you are, and thinking that if they can, I can too. It's a small hack to boost your morale. Like whenever I feel like it's been difficult, I look up to the people I admire and I always think that they went through the same or tougher situations than me, so if they're successful now, I'll too be successful one day. The third point in power is having the beginner's mindset. So there's a Zen concept which includes a Japanese term, Shoshin, which roughly translates to a beginner's mindset. This might sound a bit odd, but having a beginner's mindset makes you willing to experiment without a feeling of embarrassment, as beginners are more willing to make mistakes, and these mistakes are precisely what's needed to learn. So every time while learning, having a beginner's mindset can be really beneficial instead of being Mr. or Miss who knows it all, even if you're not. Next up, in people, Ali has divided people into two categories: people who drain your energy, who left you feel exhausted and drained after every interaction, and people who fill you up with energy and lifts your soul, those who make your mood better and motivated. The simple idea behind this is that we want to surround ourselves with people who fall under the second category, those who energize us, and not with those people who are your energy vampires. Now, let's move ahead to overcoming procrastination by overcoming the three blockers: uncertainty, fear, and inertia. Let's get to the solutions one by one. One of the methods of being uncertainty to some extent is to set goals, but we usually tend to set goals for ourselves which are out of our control, like my goal is to get 10 more subscribers from this video. And this method of goal setting is utterly useless because we don't have any control over the outcome, but what we certainly have control over is the work we put in. And a method of goal setting given by Ali is called NICE goals, which means near term, which ensures that we're concentrating on the immediate steps we need to take along the journey and help us avoid being overwhelmed by the bigger picture. It can be weekly or daily goals. Input based, which focuses on the process rather than the end goal. Controllable, similar to above, we want to focus on goals that are within our control. Energizing, which includes applying the above discussed ways of play, power, and people to our set goals. So, near term, input based, controllable, and energizing. NICE goals. The next blocker in our productivity is fear. In the beginning of the chapter, Ali gives a really nice quote that it isn't the lack of talent or inspiration that's holding you back, it's fear. Well, in the 1960s, a psychologist named Howard Becker concluded from a study that people who are labeled as criminals after their very first crime are much more likely to engage in criminal behaviors again. Conclusions that instead of putting some negative label on ourselves, we must try to label ourselves in all sorts of positive ways. But sometimes we go through something and we will fear in ourselves that we will never be successful at it. For example, you get rejected by someone you like, and as a result, you decide for yourself that you're not lovable and will spend the rest of your life alone. But what Ali suggests here is to follow the 10-10-10 rule, which means asking yourself, will this matter in the next 10 minutes, 10 weeks, and 10 years? Taking the same example, you get rejected by someone you like. Will this matter in 10 minutes? You might feel sad and not want to show your face to that person. Now, will this matter in 10 weeks? Maybe, but you'll probably be less upset by then. And lastly, will this matter in 10 years? Probably not at all, because you meet many people by here and then who could completely change your life. This rule helps us recognize the magnitude of the problem we're stressing about, and that the problem we're stressing over right now won't even matter in the future. The last blocker in our productivity is inertia. According to Newton's first law of motion, an object at rest remains at rest, or if in motion, remains in motion unless acted on by some external force. And this law can be well applied to productivity as to physics. Most of the times when we're not doing anything, just getting started on the task is the most difficult part, and once you do it for a while, you won't need much force to continue. And the first thing we can do to get the external push to start is to reduce the friction. In order to reduce the environmental friction, one thing you can do is reducing the distance between you and the habit. For example, if you want to learn guitar, try keeping the guitar near you so that picking up the guitar becomes the usual gesture while you take break from work instead of scrolling social media. But to reduce emotional friction, you can take help of a simple but powerful technique, the 5-minute rule. The idea here is that when you don't feel like working, just sit down and tell yourself that you're only going to work for 5 minutes, and also set a timer for that. And at the end of those 5 minutes, chances are that you might have gotten the required push. But in case you don't feel like working, you don't feel like continuing, don't feel obliged to continue, because it's just a trick to fool your brain, and if it doesn't happen, then there's no point continuing. Another tip in order to beat the inertia and get the work done is to have an accountability buddy. You know, it's hard to go to the gym every day, but when there's someone outside your house waiting for you to go to the gym, maximum chances are that you'll go. This is an amazing method, as here you have someone to take care of your accountability, and you also can hold someone else accountable, and it's always easier to tell someone else where they're lacking instead of doing a self-introspection. Now, the last thing that's left to talk about is how to sustain productivity in the longer run, and the biggest obstacle in that is burnout. Now, Ali has described 3 types of burnouts in this book, so let's dive deeper into it. The first kind of burnout is overexertion burnout, which means just taking on too much work and then having a sense of overwhelm because of too much packed days. The simplest solution for such burnout is doing less and learning to say no. The biggest reason behind our fully packed days is we don't know what to say no to, and a really great method of recognizing what to say no to is what Derek Sivers called hell yeah or no. Like, unless you don't feel really excited about the plan your friend is making or any other thing, just say no to it. Only say yes when it's a hell yeah, let's do it. This way, you can make your days less cluttered, overcoming the overexertion burnout. The second burnout is the depletion burnout, which is related to a misguided approach to rest. Like, you don't give yourself enough breaks during the day to recharge the energy of your mind, body, and spirit. Well, if you're struggling with less breaks, the simple solution is to take more breaks, and including those small but deep breaks into your working schedule can be really beneficial for your efficiency. Like, you can simply work for 40 to 50 minutes and then take a 10 to 15 minute break. But most of us really don't know how to take breaks. We usually think that after a long working session, just 10 minutes scrolling on Instagram will rejuvenate us, which is not true because it constantly deprives you of your energy instead of giving you some. So the next time you're on a break, just try going out a little, see some greenery, have some light snack, talk to your mom or dad or some other similar stuff, because deep inside you also know what's energy giving and what's energy taking. The third and final burnout mentioned in the book is misalignment burnout, and this means doing the wrong stuff, i.e. putting your efforts into something that doesn't bring you joy or meaning. Well, Ali has mentioned so much stuff about this topic, but explaining all that will take another 5 minutes, so let's wrap it up with the simplest idea that he mentioned. Think of this. It makes sense, like, if you think about this, you'll be reminded that you only have a finite amount of time and that could end any moment, so doing the stuff that matters to you is the only best way to live. This is something also mentioned by Austin Kleon in his book Show Your Work, that reading obituaries make you want to work on stuff you're willing to do and not to miss any opportunities. In short, when we think about this, we get a clearer view of life. We all know that working hard and being persistent is the key to success, but in order to be persistent in those areas, feeling good is one of the crucial aspects that helps us keep going, as life is all about feeling good and getting better and better. Thank you so much for watching.